Hi, good morning. My name is Susan B Lochocki, and I'm running for President of the United States as a write-in. And this is coffee with me, and this is my kitchen, my temporary kitchen. So I have coffee today. Yes, I do. Them. It says votes for women. And yes, if you vote for me, you're going to be voting for women because I'm very pro-woman and I'm pro-family, pro lots of things, pro-you. I'm also pro-men. What's good for women is good for men too. So I'm going to talk briefly about, I should say, before we get any further, happy Labor Day. Yeah, so today I'm going to talk about the labor that I know. I mean, I know about working labor, but then I know about giving birth labor. And so I'm going to talk again about that a little bit, and also about the fire in California that was started by a gender, what's it called? A gender reveal party. So yeah, it's pretty sad, but accidents happen, I suppose, unfortunately. So currently, you can vote for me as a write-in in Alabama, Iowa, D.C., Oregon, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Vermont, Wyoming, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island. So please vote for me there. Write my name in. It's Susan B Lochocki, and I live at 375 South End Avenue, New York, 10280. It's a new address, so I don't know it always off the top of my head, but yeah. All right. So it is September 7th. It's Labor Day, and it's Memory Monday. Now, I was going to talk about a whole bunch of other things, but I came across this really nice thing about the different stages of labor, and labor being, the birthing process. And then, so I sort of changed my plan. I was going to, talk a little bit about my memories of Jessie being sick with cancer, but maybe I'll do that next Monday for Memory Monday. So there are 4 stages of giving birth, of labor in the birthing process. So the first stage is the thinning of the opening of the cervix. And it's called, the first part, the thinning is called infacement, and the opening is called dilation. And what that is the area, the cervix is the area between the vagina and the uterus and the womb and everything. And it's like a gateway that opens to give birth and then it closes back up again. And it's that opening, that's the painful part, including, as women, when we have our periods, that opens just very slightly to let the menstrual fluid come out. And that's why we also get cramping then. But when you go into real labor, when you're giving birth, you start with those sort of cramps, and then they just get stronger and stronger. So anyways, I'm going to read this. It's from a Kaiser Permanent. I'm not sure what that is, but it's really good. So during the first stage of labor, contractions help your cervix to thin and begin to open. This is called the infacement and dilation. As your cervix dilates, your healthcare provider will measure the opening in centimeters. 1 centimeter is less than half an inch. During this stage, your cervix will widen to about 10 centimeters, and that's when birth begins, like the real birthing process, the child coming through. This first stage of labor usually lasts about 12 to 13 hours for the first baby and 7 to 8 hours for the second child. And for me, for the second child, it took about 5 hours. So that varies also between women. So sometimes it's even less. I've heard 3 hours too. So, but for the most part, the first birth is the longest and the most, difficult because, you've never had that experience before. So the first stage of labor has 3 parts. The early labor, your cervix opens to about 4 centimeters. You will probably spend most of the early labor at home. Try to keep doing your usual activities, relax and rest and drink fluids, eat light meals if you want to, and keep track of your contractions. And that is the important part, keeping track. Contractions may go away if you change activity, but over time they'll get stronger. When you notice a clear change in how frequent, how strong, and how long your contractions are, and when you can no longer talk during a contraction, you probably are moving into active labor. And I would agree with that. So you want to keep track of those, but keep doing whatever. And spend some time with your family. If you've already got kids, you can start preparing them too for what's happening. So then active labor, this is number 2 of the first part. Your cervix opens from 4 to 7 centimeters. This is when you should head to the hospital, when you have contractions every 3 to 4 minutes, and they each last about 60 seconds. Now, actually, in the first part and in this part, they talk about the widening of the cervix. But unless you're already at the hospital or you have, like, your midwife or something with you, there's no way to really measure those. So you're going to have to go with the amount of pain and the amount of contractions and how long they last. So that part's the more important part until you get to the hospital. Then when you're at the hospital, they'll constantly check you and see how far along you are. You don't want to go to the hospital too early, because then sometimes you have to stay, and or you waste their time and then you have to go home. Because this can be, I've even heard, so some first births going, for 15 hours. And so, these were people who were very sensitive at the beginning to probably the contractions and thought they were already in full labor when they didn't realize they had all this other time that needed to pass by first. So anyways, it's really when the contractions are coming every 3 to 4 minutes, and they last about 60 seconds long. This is when it's time to sort of go in. So it often means that your cervix is opening faster, about 1 centimeter per hour. You may not want to talk as you become more involved with dealing with your contractions. So there you go. So when you really, you're getting concerned because you're feeling a lot of pain and you can't keep your mind off of it anymore, that's when you go in. So all your bags should have been packed already, and you should be ready to go and go. Then as your labor progresses, your bag of waters, the amniotic sac, may break, causing a gush of fluid. After the bag of waters breaks, you can expect your contractions to speed up. And I would agree with that too. Now, if your bag of water doesn't break, which is what happened to me, things will anyways progress. But I believe that when the water breaks, everything speeds up a lot quicker. Slow, easy breathing is usually helpful at this time. Focus on positive, relaxing images or music may also be helpful. Changing positions, massage, and hot or cold compresses can help you feel better. Walking, standing, sitting upright will help labor progress. Relaxing during and between contractions saves your energy and helps your cervix to open. Many hospitals have whirlpool or soaking tubs that may help relax and ease comfort. Now, I had the option of giving birth in a tub, but I chose not to, because when you're in the tub, you're in there alone. And I wanted my husband to be a part of it. So I stayed out of the water which I'm really happy with. You know, he was there, he was giving me teas and beverages and massaging. He could massage my back, and this all helped. You know, he was a huge help, and it was amazing to have him as my husband or assistant at the time. You know, he was really, really good. I will say, you know, I'm not sure if it's good for men to see their women, you know, their wives go through something like this. So, you know, I think it affects them more than they realize. So you know, with that said, I was still happy to have him there. And I also had a midwife, and then I had a doctor. So I had a good supply of people with me. And it went smoothly, you know. So, but yes, this part about, you know, slow, easy breathing and moving, changing position, these are all true things. It's not so easy to change position, but you do. And sometimes you don't also. Sometimes you eventually stop. So anyway, so you can try the pool, the water, you know. I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I decided against it at the end. Transitioning to then the second stage is part 3. Your cervix opens to 7 to 10 centimeters. For most women, this is the hardest or most painful part of labor, and that is true. This is where you will make sounds you never knew you could make. And it's like Tarzan. I felt like Tarzan, you know. This is when your cervix opens to the fullest. Contractions last about 60 to 90 seconds and come every 2 to 3 minutes, or even, you know, one right after the other. You have eventually no time in between, and you have this urge to push, or I guess that's the second stage. That's the next stage. Okay, yeah, so this is when there's just no getting comfortable. There is very little time to rest, and you may feel overwhelmed by the strength of the contractions, and this is true, but you can do it. You can. You may feel tired, frustrated, irritated, and may not want to be touched. That can also be. You may feel sweaty, sick to your stomach, shaky, hot, cold. Although you may find slow, easy breathing to be most effective throughout labor, you may also find uneven breathing patterns most helpful at this time. Yeah, you can try to keep patterns, but you know what? You're in charge. So you just breathe how you can when you can. And that's the important thing. It's all about you have to be comfortable, not stressed, getting the baby out. That's the important thing. So labor, yeah. And you know what? I forgot to say that I'm marching, you know, for women. So I'm marching for our rights, for the right to have a happy, healthy birthing environment, and health care to provide enough also to stay in the hospital a bit longer. I understand that in the US right now the policy is you come in, you have the baby, and you go home. But you know what? You need some pampering, you need some training. So I'm pushing for staying in the hospital for a little while so that you can get used to the whole thing. Everybody can keep an eye on you and the baby to make sure everybody is doing well. Because a lot happens with the child that first day or two, where emergencies happen, and then, you know, you don't want to be rushing to the hospital. You should already be there so everything can be taken care of immediately. All right, so I'm marching for us, for our labor, for the right of getting paid for what we deserve. You know, not just because we give birth, but we also raise children. And it's not a hobby. We deserve a pension, we deserve vacation time, we deserve health care. And for me, health care includes eyes and teeth and you know, mental health care too. So, yeah, you know, we need to change that. It's a lot of work to be a parent, to be a mother. And it's time. We need to take care of our mothers. So let me continue. Now, the second stage of labor, your baby moves through the birth canal. So that means through the cervix and the vagina and then comes out. And this is, it hits the cervix wall, and then you feel this urge to push. And then you push it through and the head comes out. Then you push it through again and the shoulders, and then one more push and the whole thing comes out, the whole body. And then a little while later, the amniotic sac comes out. But let me read what they have here. The second stage of labor begins when the cervix is completely dilated and ends with the birth of your baby. So when the head comes through, that's when the ripping occurs, because that's the biggest part of the baby. And that's when, there's lots of damage is done, lots of stretching and damage. So, but we're somehow flexible there, and it just comes out. It's a bit painful, but you can do it, and it's short-lived, and then you have no pain anymore. So, contractions push the baby down the birth canal, and then you feel tense pressure, similar to the urge to have a bowel movement, but like a really big one. Your healthcare provider may ask you to push with each contraction. The contractions continue to be strong, but they may spread out a bit to give you rest time. The length of the second stage depends on whether or not you've given birth before, and how many times, and position of the baby and the size of the baby. The intensity at the end of the first stage of labor will continue in the pushing phase. You may be irritable during contractions and alternate between wanting to be touched and talked to and wanting to be left alone. It isn't unusual for a woman to grunt and moan when the contractions reach the peak. And that is true. Like I said, you're going to make sounds you never knew you could, and but it's really amazing. And when it's all done, you got this beautiful little baby in your arms, and you are just glowing, absolutely glowing. It's the most spectacular thing you will ever do in your life. Then the third stage of labor is the afterbirth. So you got this baby on you, and things keep coming out. They usually cut the umbilical cord, and then everything is really done. So after the birth of your baby, your uterus continues to contract to push out the placenta, the afterbirth. The placenta usually delivers in about 5 to 15 minutes after the baby arrives, and that's true. I had problems with mine. It wouldn't come out for Kai. So I ended up having to, we tried acupuncture. That didn't work either, so they had to put me under, and they had to take it out manually. So basically they had to give me then an abortion after the birth. They had to go in and abort the attachment to the umbilical cord, because it wouldn't come out. Otherwise I would have bled to death. So, and then the fourth stage of labor is recovery. Your baby is born, the placenta has been delivered, and you and your partner will probably feel joy, relief, and fatigue. And that is true. Most babies are ready to nurse within a short period after birth. Others wait a little longer. If you are planning to breastfeed, we strongly encourage you to do so as soon as possible after your baby is born. Nursing right after birth helps the uterus to contract and decreases the bleeding. So there we go. That is labor and birth. So, I'm running out of time, so I better speed this up. Isn't She Lovely is the song of the day by Stevie Wonder, and I guess I'm going to have to stop here because I got to stop. Okay, bye.